Today I'm gonna try to quarter saw a log. I've never done this before. I've heard a lot about it. I have been investigating into it. I made a few diagrams here because I did have a customer mention it, and I just wanted to be sure we're on the same page of what he expected out of his logs. This diagram here would be what they call just a straight cut. You'd pretty much take off your slabs and then maybe a flitch or two off the side and get a kent that has no wane or bark on it, and then slice it down to whatever dimension lumber you're looking for out of that log. This is just something I did, thinking, well, if the log was big enough, you could quarter saw like that. But true quarter sawing, the old way, is this. There's different ways they do it to speed up production. If you were gonna do like an awful lot of it, you probably want to explore that. I believe you'd get the most out of quarter sawing doing it like this. It just takes longer. So if you're not going to do a lot of it, it's probably just as well. Pretty much the bigger the log, the better. Probably want a high quality log. White oak, red oak, they claim gives you the best results. And you pretty much slice your log in half and then in quarters and try to get the pith or the center of the tree on that point. So you may even have it where two of the quarters might be smaller than the other two. Just depends on where the pith is, which is the center of the tree, because you want that in the corner of all your quarter sawn lumber so that it could be removed, I imagine, because of quality and things like that. And there's all sorts of reasons for that. That's what I know so far. We're gonna get out by the mill. I'll take a tape measure with me and we'll see if we can get something that looks like this diagram. So this here's hickory, cherry, a little bit of red oak, and just a little bit of white oak in this pile. We just stickered this all up. I wasn't able to sell it. It was kind of a thing where when I called to, before I saw it, they said they would have a need for it, and then they ended up buying a couple truckloads, and I'm assuming later on this year I'll be able to get this moved, but they're filled up. So we stickered it up ourselves, and you have to do that so that your lumber doesn't get moldy or spoil. I cut all my stickers on my mill, so they're 1/2 inch by like 2.5 inches wide, and I had just cut a log that was 4.5 feet long, and I diced that all up that way, so it made it really easy, and everything is very consistent. So all these are cut at 1 1/8 inches, and we tried to sort it to a certain degree. We got some longer stuff on the bottom here. We ended up with just a little bit of longer stuff up there because it was on the bottom of our loads of stuff, so we didn't, a little bit of overhang there. But anyway, so we made it so we put 2x4s in between every 10 layers all the way up, so that we were able to pallet fork this, lift it and put it on a trailer, and we won't have to like take it completely apart to move it, because I will not be able to lift even half of this. This way I'm sure I'll be able to handle it with my pallet fork and my Bobcat. So it can stay here as long as it needs to stay here. And this would be what they call, just plain sawed. And I was told that saw the boards as wide as the Kent will give you, and then there's some flitch stuff in here too where we did a little bit of edging, but very little wane on this stuff, a little bit on a few of the corners, but it's some pretty nice stuff. So I hope it preserves well. Interesting thing though, they told me that cherry and hickory are kind of the highest ones that are paid the best for right now. And knotty hickory is the top. Like these boards on top, I don't know if you can even see that. That board just happened to have these small knots all the way through it, and very high quality. It was a smaller log. The guy told me back in the 70s they used to put stuff like that through the chipper. That was the lowest end, and now it's the highest. It's interesting how the people love the character of the wood, not so much the strength of the wood and the qualities that way. It's more the look. So I'm pretty proud of this pile. We got quite a bit here, so I hope it works out for us. But you got to do what you got to do. Okay, today it's a pretty warm day. We're in the 60s already here in the middle of March, and everything is really starting to dry off. I was going to do this the other day. It was so darn windy, and I thought maybe you wouldn't hear me right. But so this log, we're 17 inches on the larger end. It's a really nice straight piece. It's only 5.5 feet long, but it's very high quality. You got your pith, which is the center, you can see right here. And we're gonna try to get that blade to go right in line with that and hopefully come out in the same place for the center of the tree on the other end. And I'll have to block them up a little bit. I got my my tilt boards, which are these, and they flip up and down. The log isn't really long enough to reach the other one, but I could shove it down. But I think being it's a smaller log, I'm just going to get under there with something and put a wood wedge or something under there to get it, you know, leveled off so that the center, so the blade is going exactly through the center, or as close as I could possibly try to get it to go. So we're gonna see if we can make this work. I'm guessing I'm gonna be fumbling this a little bit, have to probably stop to think a little bit, but I think once we figure this out, we may jump into something bigger. And I'm really curious what kind of market there is for this. I believe when they do this, they don't do a lot of it. There is probably a few mills somewhere that do this like religiously. It's mostly used for like furniture, like tabletops, and I've heard like even like drawers where they can't tolerate warping, and really in any furniture. And I used to build furniture way back when I was more Aaron's age, and before then even. I always enjoyed doing it. It just got so tedious. You know, you're working with a lot of small pieces. Everything had to be very precision. But I really loved working with the cherries, the oaks. We didn't have access to much walnut back then. I would have loved to get a hold of a lot of cedar, because I know I would have did some wild things with that if I had it. And even birch, I did some stuff out of birch. I even wanted to even try to do some stuff out of box elder, just to get outside the box, just to see how that would turn out, or just something different. So anyway, I know my grandparents had some old furniture, and I remember the look on the top of the table, and it was like it would have been more like a bureau type unit where there was drawers in it and a mirror in it, and you guys know what I'm talking about. But something that was probably built in the 30s, maybe the 40s, maybe before then, I'm not even sure. It was quarter sawn oak, and I didn't know it back then. And now, after doing more and more research on what quarter sawn is all about, I realized that's what they used back then already. So really, your grain is, instead of going more the long way, your boards are coming out of it in such a way that the grain would be only straight through it, and it would give you a completely different look. You wouldn't see that big swirl that like in cherry or when you straight saw, and like in oaks and some of that stuff. You'd get more of a different type of pattern or line, and we'll see when we open this up. So I got to get this mill warmed up and get my log centered. Just measuring from where it's sitting on the deck here to the pith, which is the center of the tree, and then this side, it seems like the center is a little further here than it would be here. So I think we're going to leave it like it is, even though the log is just a little narrower on this end. And I see you got a little bit of dirt here, but maybe I have to get a brush and try to get some of that off, because I think my blade's going to go through some of that. So anyway, then we're going to get sawing. Off maybe a ½ inch there, so not too bad. I don't think they'll ever be perfect, considering nobody knows how the pith goes through the log otherwise necessarily. use one of these when you can, especially when you're sawing something so particular. So we want our boards nice and straight. It doesn't dull up the blade so quickly if you get that bark and all that junk off. And I'll try to do the same thing with the other ones. So what we're going to do is we're going to saw it so that, you know, the live edge is still going to be on the boards. Because as you can see, you're not going to get very long or wide boards out of this. You're going to get 2 or 3 nicer ones and then a couple pretty small ones. And that's the thing with quarter sawing. You end up with a lot more waste. But again, if you want quality, I guess that's how it goes. There's always parts of the tree that, well, nothing will really get wasted. It'll end up being firewood. So there's always something we can get out of it. Let's see if we can get this right. So my computer tells me how far off the deck I am. So I'm going to go 1 1/8 and cut a piece off the bottom. Then I'm going to flip it and then cut it off of this edge and then flip it again and keep going until there's, well, not enough left to do anything with. So you generally get the idea there. I'll do up the rest and then we'll talk about it a little more. But you do get a little different type of grain pattern. And I don't remember if I mentioned it. This is red oak, this piece. And it was a pretty nice piece. I think it actually was something that ended up falling on the fence somewhere. And that's why it ended up a shorter chunk, because it was in a spot where I couldn't get it out with the tractor. So I just cut it smaller. Anyhow, we'll get the rest of those cut up and then we'll show you guys the end results. And So there we go. We got those 4 little corner slivers there. You know, the issue comes back is if these here are 3 feet apart, the log is only 5 feet long. Ideal would be if you could at least 3 of these so that your end of your log is real close to here. Because what happens, the blade starts in, and if it's sticking way out here, it turns it. If you got 2 people, one person could kind of hold the other end while it enters. That's how you get by with some of that short stuff. Okay, I'm going to show you what we got here. Pretty much on average, we average 6 boards per quarter, and we got one we end up getting 7 out of. Must have been just slightly bigger. That's how it went through. But thing of quarter sawing, you end up with strips that are anywhere between, well, that was a 17-inch log with the bark, so 16 inches of wood roughly kind of thing there. Got our widest boards are maybe 7 inches, maybe 8, one of them there. So, but for furniture, that's typically you end up stripping it up quite a bit anyway. Like here, this is where your pith was, your center of your tree, and that's what you end up getting. I think the theory is too, is that all ends up on one edge that can be trimmed away without wasting the whole thing. So typically what happens is your grain is running straight up and down instead of curved more, and that's what gives you that extra strength. They claim it don't warp as much and all that. I'm going to take one of these over to the, maybe get it wet and we can get a better illustration of what this stuff looks like. We do got a knot there, so I think the challenge is to try to get a nice enough log that you would have that, but kind of looks like he's been way inside somewhere. So this is one of the wider pieces, so there's no way of knowing what's in there till you cut them open. I can see this look that I've seen in my grandma's furniture. You see how the waves are in here. That's closest to the pith again. Your best quarter sawing is out further, actually in the smaller strips, because of the grain being up and down instead of starting to run more horizontal. There you go. That's what I know about that so far. We're living and learning. I got a feeling we're gonna learn a lot more about this stuff as we personally do it ourselves. We're not just gonna see it through everyone else. So, all right. Well, thanks for watching and that.